Uh, Welcome, everybody. This is the Moraga-Orinda Fire District Board of Directors meeting, regular meeting of March 25th, 2020. And I'd like to call the meeting to order right now. This is Stephen Danziger, the president of the board. So, Marcia, if we can do a roll call, please.
Yes. Director Bates,
Here.
Director Donner,
Here.
Director Jex,
Here.
Director Jorgens,
Here.
and President Danziger.
Here. Thank you. During this meeting, there'll be several times when the public is invited to participate. The public can participate via the phone number that is up on the screen now or through email. At this time, this is a public comment section of the meeting where the public can address the district board concerning any item not appearing on the agenda, but within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. If you would like to address the board on any matter not on the agenda, you can call, numbers up on the screen, 1-669-900-6833, or email at info@mofd.org. We'll wait 3 minutes to see if we get any response to addressing the board to any matter not on the agenda.
Steve, I just got a quick question. I think that's the same number we all dialed in on, and it requested a webinar code, but then it said everybody except people who got promoted, like the board members, was going to be muted. So how are they going to actually make any comment if they're all muted?
If I can go ahead and respond.
Yes.
So questions and comments can be submitted via the Zoom chat if they have logged in through the link, or if they're listening on the phone or watching from our Facebook live stream, they can send in an email to the mofd.org email address. And any emails that come in, emails and comments, will be read into record by the staff.
So they actually can't say anything. Is that what we're saying?
They cannot. They can participate through the email or by the chat. So the chat is, they can type in their questions.
So I have the Facebook Live up on my phone. And so I see at the bottom of the screen, there's a place to write a comment. I guess people who are watching via the Facebook Live could just type in their comments there, like a question on that screen. Is that yes?
The Facebook feed is a stream of our webinar, but we do not have somebody monitoring the Facebook page to respond to those questions. Okay. So the best way to send in the comments or questions would be by the email address or by the Zoom chat.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
There is approximately a 20-second delay on the Facebook stream, which is why we are having the public comment to remain open for a minimum of 3 minutes, so we can be sure to allow for the potential digital processing delays to make sure that the public has sufficient time and the opportunity to send in their questions.
Okay, thank you.
This is Gloria Ann Sasser. I'm monitoring the district's email, the info email address, as well as the chat on Zoom. There is one member of the public who has made a chat comment through Zoom. And it says that they're dialing in and can see and hear everything. but apparently we cannot hear the member of the public, which is correct. So I just want to make sure that that the person who is on this meeting, that they, if you would like to make a comment to the board during public comment, which is now, please type in your comment through the Zoom chat or send an email to info@mofd.org.
Yeah, this is Craig Jorgens. I think for the future, if this is supposed to approximate what happens when people can actually attend the meeting in person and stand up and have their 3 minutes, having your 3 minutes and having to type it is really hard. So I think we need to think about how to change this process in the future.
Okay, yeah, I mean, this is all new to us, so I think after this meeting, we'll have a post-meeting discussion on what went right, what went wrong, and how maybe we can change it. That's a good idea.
Marcia, this is Director Donner. I did just send via the Facebook feed just a test comment. Did you receive that?
We did not receive that because we do not have a person monitoring the Facebook feed.
Okay.
I see it. It did go through. I can see it on my phone.
Okay. And so then if you see public comment coming through the Facebook feed, then you could read them out loud.
Yeah, that's true. I could.
Mm-hmm.
I do see that other people are watching through Facebook. I can see people when they're on.
Very good. So the 3-minute timer has ended. If we could check our emails and Facebook and Zoom for comments.
This is Gloria Ann Sasser. I checked the info@mofd.org email address. No emails were received. And I'm checking the Zoom. And one person one attendee in the public raised their hand. And I asked if they have a public comment, but they have not responded. So if anyone in the public would like to comment, please type your message in through Zoom.
Okay, I'm not seeing any, and since you didn't receive any, I'm going to close the public, item number 2, public comment on any item not appearing on the agenda.
Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry, Director Donner. The email just came through from the person, and I'll read it. It says, question for the board. I represent one of the several Firewise neighborhood committees. It's Dalewood/Amber Valley. We are very supportive of Chief Winokur's proposed fire code and also would like the board to reserve resources for helping with residential fire risk mitigation. And the email is signed from Hattie Hamlin.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Havlin. We'll take that under consideration. Okay, I'm going to move on to item number 3 now, which is the consent agenda. Is there any member of the board that would like to pull anything from the consent agenda, which would be item 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, or 3.4?
This is Craig Jorgens. I don't want to pull it, but I do want to just comment on the information we got for the performance of the portfolio from Cicera that was included. We should just realize that data, a lot of that data is not marked to market at the end of the year as it would imply it is. A lot of it doesn't actually show returns from this year. There are lots of footnotes that show that many of those returns are almost a year old. So we just need to realize that there's a huge lag in the public availability of true market returns for the information that those guys provide.
Okay, thank you. Council, John? Since Craig brought that up, can we discuss that a little bit?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so that's on item 3.3. So I would just like to ask staff on that. What Director Jorgen said, I'm assuming that's correct. Is that how those reports work? That they're that it's past performance? It's not actually up until the end of the year?
Yes, sir. It's
Looking at?
general, depending on the asset classification, but for a number of the assets, the report from the prior year's performance isn't received by Cicera until October.
Okay,
At which point they process it, and that's why there's a lag. Now, that said, there's some elements of Cicera's portfolio having to do with market equities that are current as of the end of last year, but a significant portion of the portfolio is as of 31 December 2018.
okay, thank you. Any other questions on the agenda? Anything we want to talk about, or otherwise I will look, I would ask the public to comment. Anything else from any directors? Okay, any member of the public would like to speak on any item on the consent agenda? That would be items 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, or 3.4. You can do so now. The best way to do it would be emailing at info@mofd.org. Or you could comment via the Facebook Live if you're watching that way, or the phone. So I think the phone number will work. Is that what we said? I'm not sure.
No, sir, the phone number is for calling in to listen to the meeting. The
Okay.
ways to submit public comment are
Gotcha.
via the chat feature if they're signed in from the Zoom app, or sending
Okay.
an email to info@mofd.org.
Okay. So we have the timer on that, Marcia?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
I received, this is Gloria Sasser. I received another email during public comment. It says, our group feels strongly that any funds currently not committed should be used for residential mitigation efforts. In our community, we have many senior citizens who don't have the financial capability to do all the requested and specified mitigation work. Rather than adding firefighter staff, we'd like to see the money put into prevention. Thank you, Hattie Hamlin.
Thank you for your comment, Ms. Hamlin. In the coming months, we're going to be discussing our agenda for the next fiscal year. So we could, that would be appropriate to discuss at that time.
That is the end of our 3 minutes.
Okay. Any more comments from the public? Glorianne?
No more comments from the public.
Okay, I'm going to close the public comment section of the consent agenda, and I'm going to ask Director for a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
This is Craig Jorgens. I'll second it.
Who made the motion?
John checks.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. We'll take a roll call on that.
Director Bates,
Aye.
Director Donner,
Yes.
Director Jex,
Yes.
Director Jorgens,
Yes.
President Danziger.
Yes. The motion passes. The consent agenda is passed. We'll move on to item number 4. It's the regular agenda. Item 4.1 is to adopt resolution number 20. I just want to make comment here. There was an editing error in the resolution number. It should actually be 20-05. So if you make a note of that. So the resolution number 20-05, adopting Amendment 3 to the employment agreement between Moraga-Orinda Fire District and David Winokur. And council, I think, is going to talk about this one. Council?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just
Okay,
was on mute.
Okay.
The board created an ad hoc committee, as you know, to evaluate the chief's performance, and then appointed the members of that ad hoc committee, Director Bates, Director Donner, to negotiate with the chief with respect to his terms and conditions of employment for this coming year. What you see before you, item 4.1, is the results of that negotiation. The district entered into an employment agreement dated December 20, 2017 with Chief Winokur with respect to the terms and conditions of his employment as fire chief for the district. The agreement provided for future annual salary adjustments based on performance against mutually agreed upon objectives as determined by the board following the annual written evaluation. The district and the chief, based on this negotiation, now wish to amend the chief's employment agreement to provide for the following. 1, an increase in base salary from $236,500 to $248,325. 2, a retention bonus, the essence of which is that if the chief serves out the remaining 3 years on his sentence, his contract, that he, we have to have a little comedy here, that once he terminates from the district, he will be entitled to a bonus of $75,000. And the reason for upon termination is in order to ensure that that is not a pensionable contribution. We have spoken with Sarah, and they confirm that it is not pensionable in the way that has been written in the contract. Third, to add OES mutual aid pay. While deployed as part of the OES Master Mutual Aid System, in addition to his regular salary, the chief will be paid for at his regularly hourly rate for time in excess of 8 hours per day and on weekends. And so what we're talking about here is primarily the large fire events that occur. The chief and the board delegates agreed that this payment would be contingent upon reimbursement of the district by third parties for the chief's time and would be limited to the amount of such reimbursement. And then finally, related to that, a side letter to provide for payment for the fire chief for the time reimbursed to the district by the state for his deployment to the Kincaid fire on a one-time only basis. So that is essentially retroactive to last year. No other provision with respect to this OES pay is retroactive.
Okay, thank you, John. Directors, any comment on this?
I'm in support of it.
Yes,
It's Craig.
this is Director Donner. I just wanted to have clarification that this was strike teams only to Northern California and no deployment to Southern California.
That's correct. I'm sorry, I skipped over that. You're right. I would also emphasize, by the way, with respect to this latter issue, we also have confirmation from Cesara that this pay will be non-pensionable.
Any other comments from directors at this point? I would say also to the public that we've been discussing this matter in closed session for months now. So this wasn't something that was just done in a short time. We did have a ad hoc committee that met with the chief, met with council, and this has been probably 3 months that we've been discussing this. Personally, I'd like to say I'm really appreciative of the job that Chief Winokur's been doing for the district. You know, we've had a challenging year. I think we've been very successful in matters, especially the North-Orinda Shaded Fuel Break project and some of the other critical incidents we've had in our district. And I think this new contract reflects how the board feels about the chief's performance. For the members of the public also, I'd like to say that the chief's pay increase is comparative to the increase that was given to other employees in the district.
This is Director Jorgens. I would like to echo your good comments about the chief and other things that I've heard in the public about the chief. I think he's gone to, almost 100 outside meetings, among Firewise communities and city council meetings and things in the 2 years he's been here. He's really made a difference in how proactive our emergency preparedness is. As a community, we have a lot more Firewise people now. People are aware of it. We're trying to get the fire code changed. He's been a real instrument of change for the much better, in my opinion, in our community, and we owe him a lot of thanks for that.
I would echo that. And just a comment, this is John Jex. This is effective as of December 20th, 2019. That's correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Retroactive. Yeah.
Okay, any other comments from directors before I open it for public comment? Okay, we can get back to it too, but at this point, I'm going to open up to the public. Any member of the public have any comments they would like to make on item 4.1, which is the employment agreement between Moraga-Orinda Fire District and David Winokur. So we'll open it up for 3 minutes. And again, the best way to do it is through email at info@mofd.org. Or if you wanted to type in any questions or comments on Facebook Live, I can read those as well.
I've received one, this is Glorianne Sasser. I've received one email for public comment on the fire chief contract. It says, just FYI for the record, feedback from Local 1230 and the membership were not included in the fire chief review process. Speaking for the membership, considering our current financial climate We just ask the board to seriously consider the bonus aspect of this contract at this time. Thank you. Mark McCullough, Local 1230 Union Representative.
So let me just briefly respond to that. The subcommittee, board members Bates and Donner, instructed me to write an email to the union's representatives, and I did so, requesting comment. I followed up that email with multiple calls to Vince Wells, the president of the union, none of which were returned.
Okay, thank you. I'd speak, I'm speak, this is President Danziger speaking while we're waiting for any other comments on that matter of the retention bonus. Speaking for myself, I think we're very fortunate to have Chief Winokur here in our district. There are a lot of opportunities in the Greater Bay Area even for chiefs, and I know that our chief is going to be heavily recruited and has been already. And I think this retention bonus is warranted and needed at this point. And it's our way of hopefully assure the chief will be here for the 5 years and help move our district forward as it's been.
This is Craig Jorgens. I would agree with that, and I think that my memory is that the benchmark we used for our prior chief, Chief Winokur, is now roughly receiving the pay, 2 years later, almost 3 years later, it is 3 years later, that our prior chief was earning when he left. So, and I think he's doing a tremendous job. So I am supportive of, not only the salary, but the retention bonus that we have put on. And again, it's a cliff thing. It isn't he has to stay here all 3 years to get it.
Thank you, Director Jorgens.
Our timer has ended.
Okay. Well,
There's
I don't
no
see-
more public comment emails received.
okay, and I don't see anything on the Facebook Live. So at this time, I will close the public comment on item 4.1 and ask for a motion.
I move we approve item 4.1, the salary change and bonus system for Chief Winokur. Craig Jorgens.
I would second that motion. This is Director Jex.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and it's adopt resolution number 20-05, adopting the amendment 3 to the employment agreement between Moraga-Orinda Fire District and David Whitaker. We'll do a roll call vote.
Director Bates,
Aye.
Director Donner,
Aye.
Director Jex,
Aye.
Director Jorgens,
Aye.
President Danziger.
Aye. The motion carries. Next item is item 4.2. It's the approval of the unrepresented employee handbook authorizing salary and benefits for unrepresented employees affected March 26, 2020, and approval of the salary schedule for unrepresented employees effective March 26, 2020. Staff?
President Danziger, members of the board. Last December, Local 2700 disclaimed interest in representing the 3 Moraga-Orinda Fire District administrative employees that were previously represented by the union. Therefore, it is necessary at this time to bring those 3 positions into the unrepresented employee handbook to detail the salary and benefits. Also, in the last couple of months, the district established new positions, particularly the fuels mitigation manager, the fuels mitigation specialist, and the office specialist. So all of those positions are also going to are now rolled into the unrepresented handbook, which is before you today. So yeah, we just wanted to clarify that the salary and benefits remain status quo for all of the positions that are now in the unrep handbook. So staff recommends approval of the unrep handbook, authorizing salaries and benefits effective March 26, 2020. Approval of the salary schedule for unrepresented employees, also effective March 26, 2020. And the last thing I want to point out is that there was the attorneys made slight language modifications. So there is a revised handbook that was sent out after the agenda was posted, but it has been posted on our website, and all of the board members should have it as well with some language modifications.
Thank you, Ms. Sasser. Yes, I saw the amendments and reviewed it. So any discussion from directors on this item? Okay, I think this is great that we now have all our staff members are unrepresented and all under the same employee handbook. I think that's really great. It's a vast improvement for our staff, I think, too. So I think at this time, we'll open it up for public comment. So any member of the public would like to comment on item 4.2, you can do so by emailing at info@mofd.org, or you can comment on the Facebook live feed and I can read that comment or question. So we'll time it for 3 minutes. While we're waiting, I just wanted to ask Board Secretary a question. I know I'm going to have to sign item 4.1, the resolution that we passed. Can I do that tomorrow? Are you going to be there tomorrow, or how do we want to do that?
Yes, I will have that available for you to sign tomorrow at
Okay.
any time that you are available. Just let me know.
Okay. Is there anything to sign on item 4.2? Okay.
No.
All right.
If it's okay with our council, we might want to think about using something like DocuSign, which people use all the time to sign contracts.
It's perfectly permissible.
It's an electronic method, by the way.
Yes.
Our time has ended.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any comments on the Facebook Live.
No comments to the info email address or via the Zoom chat feature.
Okay. Directors, I'd like, somebody want to make a motion?
Would we like to close public comment?
Yes, thank you. Let's close the public comment on item 4.2. And now I'm looking for a motion.
Greg Jorgens, I move we approve item 4.2, the approval of the unrepresented employee handbook.
A second, do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, Director Jex seconds. Okay, we'll take a roll call vote.
Director Bates,
Aye.
Director Donner, Director Donner,
You know, I was wondering if he's there because I lost his video feed.
Aye.
Oh, he's there. Okay. There he goes.
Director Jex,
Aye.
Director Jorgens,
Aye.
President Danziger.
Aye. Okay, item 4.2 passes. Item 5 are committee reports. And I don't believe we have any. Directors, anything on item 5 that anyone knows about that I'm missing?
Not for me. This is Craig.
Yeah. Okay, I don't think so. So we'll move on. Item 6. Item 6.1 is brief information only reports related to meetings attended by a director at district expense. Directors?
This is Director Donner. Director Danziger and myself attended the Moraga Chamber of Commerce annual awards dinner, where Mechanics Bank was recognized as Business of the Year, and our own CERT was recognized as the Nonprofit of the Year. And it was a great event, and it was just nice to see CERT recognized for all the hard work they continually do throughout the community.
Thank you, Director Donner. I think you attended one other meeting that I know of.
Oh, yes, I did. Sorry. I also did attend the Firewise, Diablo Firewise Council, and nothing really to report from that meeting.
Okay, thank you. I want to report also that on February 27th, Director Donner and I attended the Contra Costa County Fire Commissioners Association meeting. Productive meeting. The main speaker was Supervisor Diane Burgess, who spoke about the importance of everybody completing their census documents and what the census, particularly what it means to local jurisdictions, including our district. So, you know, at this point, I'll put a message out there to the public that it's really important to do the census. I know we just did ours yesterday. People should be receiving it now, and there's a lot of ramifications of the information that's received from the census. So that's just my personal opinion, but Supervisor Burgess also said it's important for our whole county. Okay. If nothing else to report on item 6.1, 6.2, questions and informational comments from board members and staff? Okay, 6.3, we have fire chief updates.
Good afternoon, directors. Starting off with a COVID-19 update. As of 1500 this afternoon, there are 2,535 cases in California with 53 deaths. Of note, half of those cases are people less than age 50 inside the state. Also announced today, schools will be out until at least May 1st. And parks are being addressed as an area in which there have been significant violations of the social distancing guidelines, and that's leading to increased park closures. Inside the county, as of 13:30 today, there are 108 confirmed COVID-19 cases that have resulted in one COVID-19 death. The death was an elderly person with some underlying issues. However, California does have the only known youth death associated with COVID-19 to date. Across the county, and as we've seen in the district as well, there have been no significant impacts to either healthcare facilities or first responders. 911 EMS responses and transports are down significantly from last month, as are emergency department volume at all county hospitals. This is being approached as the calm before the storm, and the county is putting particular emphasis into developing surge capacity to include new facilities being put up in tents to expand existing capacity. There were 15 new cases over the past 24 hours, and their ample testing supplies are now on hand within the county. That includes, as of late last week, we were able to, working as a county to identify opportunities for testing through the county lab with one-day turnaround for first responders. This is critical to our ability to maintain our response capability as the virus continues to spread. In the absence of short turnaround testing, a significant number of first responders may be placed off duty in quarantine pending the results of their tests, some of which may be negative. So getting access to that, that short fuse testing is critical to our continuity of operations. Inside the district, we've expanded our cleaning and industrial hygiene regime and made available additional resources for decon and sanitization, both to protect our members and to protect the public. The watchword is treat everyone and yourself as if you are positive, and focus on reducing transmission going both directions. And we'll continue to maintain those enhancements as we go forward to protect the most vulnerable members of our population who we serve. On that note, with generous support from the Rescue One Foundation, as I mentioned on Friday, we've purchased an aeroclave fogger, which is an aerosolized decon unit for our ambulances and other apparatus that we hope will be very useful as we seek to decon those spaces where a number of people are going to be traveling to healthcare facilities. And obviously, deconning the back of an ambulance is very challenging, and the fogger we think will help with getting into the nooks and crannies and the hidden spaces therein. Moving forward, we continue to plan for this being a long-term event. Some of the estimates show a flattened curve spiking in October. And so making sure that our resources are resilient, both our members who are responding and our equipment, so that we're able to handle the community's needs over the long term. We continue to integrate with the county at multiple levels on a several times per day basis to ensure that this is a whole of government and a whole of region effort, and that everything we are doing is nested within the broader county response, and that we are not out of step with what the rest of the county is doing. With that, Glorianne, would you like to talk about the continuity of operations?
Thank you. So thanks, Chief Winokur had us implement a business continuity plan. It was probably about a week before we had to shut down administration. So it was good. It gave us some time to identify the resources that we had, everything from laptops to desktops to cellular phones. And we decided the most efficient way to deploy things to continue operations. So when the order came from the county, we had to shut admin. What we did then and this is currently basically everything that's gone on in admin is now happening remotely in all of the employees' homes. So Monday through Friday from 8 to 5, if you call any of the extensions in administration, they are all answered remotely by an employee. Also, payroll is being processed remotely. We had today actually was our first payday since the order has gone into place, and all of our employees were appropriately paid. Accounts payable has been occurring remotely. The budget, right now we're in the middle of budget season, so budget preparation is continuing so that we stay on schedule for that as well. Ambulance billing continues uninterrupted. I've been really pleased that the new website has been launched. because that has been very helpful. And Marcia Holbrook, she implemented a new COVID-19 webpage to try to provide all the latest information to our residents and people using our website. Human resources recruitments are continuing, and Christine is on this meeting as well, and she'll talk about that some more. The information technology we implemented, we didn't, right before the order, we did not have this Zoom software. So we successfully purchased and implemented the Zoom software. And also then information technology is also successfully supporting all of administration working remotely. So I think overall, stepping back, I think it's gone very, very smoothly.
One additional item having to do with business continuity. We're continuing to receive plans. Instead of over the counter now, they're being left in a box and processed. The week prior to the shelter in place order, we received 5 plans, which appears to be about our average for January and February. 2 weeks ago, we received 1 plan. Last week, we received 5 plans, and to date, this week, we've received 2 plans. So we're continuing to see plans coming in. We're also continuing to receive requests for inspections. We're working an alternate plan to provide inspections while providing for employee safety and utilizing some remote features, and those will go into effect starting next Monday. So we'll be able to continue to execute inspections. That's critical as one of the exempted or critical businesses that was identified in the county health order was residential construction. Obviously, residential construction can't move forward without inspection. So we're positioning ourselves to provide for that as well. On a related note, the open house was tentatively scheduled for May 9th. We're not going to cancel it just yet, but I anticipate that will be canceled if the shelter in place orders are extended. Under any circumstances, I think that would be a challenge during a pandemic, and particularly occurring this soon while we may still be in shelter in place. We anticipate that may be canceled. Next, Christine will give a human resource. Sorry.
Oh, hold on. Are you moving on?
I was gonna move on to human resources update.
Okay, yeah. Before we do that, I just quick question. I was wondering if our ability to get supplies has been impacted at all, particularly for our members, masks, gloves, or any other supplies that we normally use, maybe medications, things like that. Any impact on any of that?
No, sir. Battalion Chief Jerry Lee, who runs EMS, leaned into this, working with Katie Himsel, who does the actual ordering. They ordered significant stockpiles of PPE in advance of, or as this thing was ramping up. So we have those on hand, as well as 2 days ago, we picked up an additional stock of PPE that had been released from the county stockpile, or sorry, from the state stockpile through the county. We're making those requests in a consolidated manner as a region through the EOC. So all fire agencies are submitting their requests through a single clearinghouse. So we received our first delivery of those 2 days ago. The county has significant stocks on hand that are being warehoused and distributed as needed. And the county also has pending requests from the federal stockpile routed through the state for significant numbers of PPE. So currently we do not have any PPE shortfalls. That said, with N95s and other masks and things like that that are anticipated to be in short supply, we're following the CDC guidelines for reuse when possible, in accordance with those guidelines, to reuse them in order to extend the length or the life of our supplies.
Chief, this is Director Donner. I have some more questions regarding just the COVID-19 pandemic. Is 911 dispatch screening calls so our members are going into residences prepared, number one? And then number two, in the event of possible positive test for our members, I can't believe we want to send them home to infect their families. What are we doing to protect our membership families at home?
So to the first question, EMD has been in place for screening of patients, whether or not they meet the criteria, recent foreign travel, fever above 100.4, et cetera. That's being done on every call so that the responders, it shows up both on the MDT as well as over radio, informing them that there's a possible COVID-19 patient. That pre-screening has recently been expanded to include anyone in the household or family. So after determining whether or not the reporting party or the person calling in or the patient is potentially positive, the screening is now expanded to say, is anyone else in that living environment or in the immediate family, or do they meet any of these criteria? And that information is being passed along. There's certain categories of calls, specifically motor vehicle accidents and codes, where that screening is not currently occurring because the dispatchers are following a protocol that takes them directly to expanded medical dispatch. However, we'll continue to work with the county to make sure that that protocol is followed on all calls, as well as our responders are treating every patient they come in contact with as potentially positive, so that helps to reduce the potential that information either isn't relayed or isn't understood along the way. Secondly, if a member is tests or has an exposure or is symptomatic, there is same day or next day testing via the county lab for symptomatic first responders. So in that case, where either quarantine or isolation may be indicated, the member is given a choice. If the member wants to isolate at home, they're given the option to isolate at home, to self-quarantine. If they don't want to isolate at home, the district will provide shelter and food, et cetera, and provide a quarantine location for them for the 14 days. The latest recommendations from the doctor are 7 days from the onset of symptoms at a minimum, and then 3 days from the completion of symptoms before someone is going to be considered released from quarantine.
Okay, thank
Chief,
you.
on the fire inspections and things, is the city or are the cities of Moraga and Orinda open, and are the county open for inspections and certificates and that sort of thing?
Greg, the county building department is conducting inspections on a limited basis. They're also working remotely. I don't know what the city and town are doing, although the vast majority of inspections are carried out by the county. We also have, I should note, we also have the fuels mitigation specialists who are working in an exterior manner, completing some chipping from a significant amount of material that was piled up in the Campo Lindo neighborhood. As this proceeds, we're going to reassess our ability to conduct that work outside. As an example, over the last 2 days, we had CAL FIRE hand crew working up on Orinda Oaks on city-owned property up there, reducing fuels while it's outside. We're working with the public health official to ensure that that work is in accordance with their direction and guidance regarding social distancing and sanitization, industrial hygiene, to make sure that that's done in a manner that's safe.
Chief, this is Director Danziger. When you talked about additional sanitation being done, either at Firehouse or on our rigs, is that all being done by our members?
Yes.
Okay, so no outside entities have been brought in to do any extra cleaning or anything?
No, sir. One of the two things we're trying to do, one, we're trying to reduce any traffic, the maximum degree possible, reduce the traffic through the fire stations. So the fewest number of people that our folks come into contact with on a daily basis, the lower likelihood of transmission. And then once they're in the fire station, ensuring that things like doorknobs, appliance handles, those are being sanitized on a regular basis. We've made some alterations to the uniform policy to reduce the number of uniform items that are worn on calls that also come into the station, to include boots. So really trying to create a separation both from hygiene and then from layering, so that things that are exposed to airborne droplets on a call or while in close proximity to a patient aren't brought into the fire station. Because at the end of the day, the crews are living in those stations for 2 days at a time, and maintaining the isolation and PPE measures that you see, say on a hospital floor. It's very, very challenging to maintain those in a firehouse for 48 hours at a time.
Okay, thank you, Chief. And any other comments on item 6.31 or 6.32? Okay. Okay.
And Christine is going to give us an HR update.
Okay.
Yes, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Good afternoon, directors. Today, I have several HR updates. First off, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Senate passed the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. All government employers are required to comply with this act. The Department of Labor announced yesterday that the act will take effect on April 1st, 2020, and will run through December 31st, 2020. Amongst other things, the act amends the Family Medical Leave, the FMLA, by providing public health emergency leave and public health emergency paid sick leave to employees for COVID-19 related reasons for up to 12 weeks if the employee is unable to work or telework. Employers must provide the first 2 weeks of leave at the employee's regular rate of pay. The other 10 weeks are at 2/3 of the employee's regular rate of pay, of which they can supplement leave accruals to receive 100% of their pay. So this is something that we will be offering the employees. In addition, I've been working with the district's employee assistance program provider, Concern Health, to provide resources to employees that include counseling options via phone and video conferencing, and also tips for working virtually as admin staff is doing now. If you don't have any questions, I will move on to my recruitment updates. Number one, the new office specialist, Mona Boretska, started on March 2nd. Mona supports the front counter, fire prevention, and management team. Prior to Mona's employment with the district, she worked for the California Highway Patrol as an office technician for investigative services. The new fuels mitigation manager, Gordon Graham, started on March 16th and reports to Fire Marshal Jeff Isaacs. Gordon will be overseeing the 3 fuels mitigation specialists. Gordon comes to the district from Capstone Fire Management, where he worked as a battalion chief. Prior to Capstone, Gordon served as a fire captain with Sutter County Fire Department for 18 years. Our engineer's promotional exam was scheduled to take place on March 17th and 18th. The district secures raters from outside agencies to assist in the rating and scoring process. This means that up to 15 people would be into close quarters. Due to the onset of the pandemic at the time, social distancing requirement, the district decided to reschedule the exam. The rescheduled dates are still pending. Number 4, the district's current payroll technician has informed us that she will be moving out of state. In order to fill the future vacancy and allow for cross-training, I opened a recruitment on March 6th, and I had the first review of applicants on this past Monday on March 23rd. So we identified 5 people that we were going to interview. And the interviews are going to be taking place tomorrow and Friday via the Zoom video conferencing. And lastly, the Alco Fire Academy that our trainees are currently attending has developed a plan for continuing training during the pandemic, and I will let the chief speak to this.
Thank you, Christine. Before I talk about the recruits, are there any questions for Christine on HR? Okay, the Alco Academy, following the partner of one of the recruits was symptomatic for COVID-19. Given the congregate environment they're working in at the academy, they shut down the academy for 2 weeks and have been conducting remote learning during that time. That is wrapping up at the end of this week. A decision will be made later this week about whether or not to proceed with the academy. I don't have an indication of which way that's going to go, but I think all things considered that there is a likelihood that the remainder of the academy will be canceled. To date, they've completed hose, ladders, and BA, and we believe that they are close enough to be classified as a safe beginner that we can put them in an online OJT environment for a month as an additional member on the apparatus underneath the teaching and evaluation role of an assigned captain. The intent is to move them through, if the academy is canceled, is to move them through a month-long evaluated period At the completion of that month, if they're found to be satisfactory in all the skills that we expect them to have based on this period in their training cycle, they would then be moved up and would be regular members of our staffing. That would be 12 weeks of training, counting the academy time plus the month online. If they are unable to complete the assigned skills in a satisfactory manner and their evaluation is negative, we would recycle them through an update week where they would be trained and evaluated by the second crew. There's more to follow on that. I'm working with Local 1230 and the training chief to identify what our alternatives are once a decision is made about proceeding with the ALCO Academy. I think this is a good opportunity for us to recoup the investment in these potential future members right at a time that staffing and having a robust workforce could be very beneficial to our continuity of services.
Chief, and
Chief, Greg.
this is Director Donner. We currently have 4 in the academy.
3, sir.
Okay.
Chief Director Bates here. What would that take our total staffing to for line personnel when they get through the academy or get through the extended 1 month with the captain?
Yes, sir. 55.
55. Thank you.
Okay. Any more comments on item 6.3? Okay, hearing none. Chief, on item 6.4, we do have one of the items is a letter from the Sanders Ranch HOA. And maybe that would be an opportunity to just give us an update on where we're at with the proposed fire code changes.
Yes, sir. So as mentioned, 6.41 is a letter received from the Sanders Ranch HOA expressing concern about the proposed fire code changes. The proposed fire code changes were presented to the board, in the MOFD board, in December and January, as well as in public meetings in Orinda and Moraga during that time. In February, they were presented to the Moraga Town Council and to the Orinda City Council. The Orinda City Council had additional questions, which we came back and presented them for a second time on March 3rd. They continue to have a number of questions and have directed the city attorney to research a number of items. We're working with the MOFD staff, is working with the city and town staff. District council is working with the city attorney. We're working through some of their questions and concerns that the Orinda City Council had about the proposed changes. And if we're able to identify either the answers to the questions or compromise is probably the right word on some of the areas that were not questions, but were areas of concern, then we'll come back to all 3 bodies with the modified update proposed changes based on the resolution of the current staff process that's playing out.
Okay, thank you, Chief. So I'm just going to note that under communications received, we do have the letter from Sanders Ranch Homeowners Association with their comments. And then we do have there's another emailed letter from Corin and Cone. Page here. From Corin and Cone regarding the potential impact to property taxes on COVID-19, which basically said it's hard to say right now. But they'll be, I'm sure they'll be following that. Any other comments from directors on anything under 6.4?
Sir, if I may, we have one additional communication received after the packet was published. This is from Robert Potts, who is a resident in El Toinal, who expressed his I really appreciate the MOFD programs to help residents reduce the fuel load around our homes. Thanks to the MOFD's Board of Directors efforts, we were able to take advantage of the Fuels Mitigation Chipper program. The people who came out to our property were helpful, professional, and courteous. In particular, Scott Call has been a strong advocate for your program. Thank you for this needed and useful service. Because we live at the bottom of El Toinal, I hope as people drive up El Toinal, they'll see how, with the help of MOFD, we've done our part to make our community safer from wildfire. Regards, Robert Potts.
Thank you, Chief. It's really great to hear those kind of letters. Hey, while you're mentioning that, I just wanted to ask you, I understand that at least last week, the chipping program was still in operation. And could you just address that? What's going on with the chipping program right now?
Yes, sir. So they're out chipping some piles, as I referenced previously, that were created in Camp Olindo. The neighborhood went out and had previously scheduled a fuels reduction day where the neighbors all went out and created significant piles of material. Based on the window of weather and that we were able to practice social distancing and industrial hygiene, we have the chipping crew out there reducing those piles now. Landscaping has been identified as an exempted item, or I take that back. Landscaping has been identified by the county health officer as something that individual jurisdictions can make a determination on. We've made a determination with those controls in place that that's something we can continue to do safely. As we have talked about previously, fire season is not going to take a year off. And so that while the social distancing and the measures we're putting in place to reduce the prevalence of transmission are going to certainly slow the work of fuels mitigation. We're keeping that project going forward because we are concerned about being able to handle the capacity if we get backlogged. And if work that's being done now, particularly work that has cut and piled combustible vegetation in proximity to homes, if that work is delayed, as this current storm system clears out, we're looking at several weeks of warm and dry weather. We're worried about those fuels being able to cure and felt it was very important that we get those reduced based on their proximity to homes. We're reassessing how we'll be able to proceed forward. We anticipate being able to continue to operate the chipping program through the spring with appropriate safety controls in place.
And Chief, are we fully staffed now with just because I can't recall with the fuels mitigation specialist positions?
Yes, sir, we are.
Okay, great. Okay, and any other comments from directors on under 6.4? Okay, 6.5 is future agenda items. I wonder, could board secretary, do we, just wondering, our next meeting is scheduled for the 15th of April, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I'm anticipating we're gonna have the same type of meeting, a Zoom meeting on the 15th. You know, I'm not, it's hard to say, but I'm anticipating that that's gonna happen as well, so.
This is Director Jex. On the 15th, would we start evening or 4 o'clock, or is that yet to be determined?
Well, yeah, we can talk about it right now. I would like to propose, actually, but now that you brought it up, that if we do have a telemeeting or a Zoom meeting, that we do it at an earlier time, at the 4 o'clock time on the 15th.
Director Jorgens, that's fine with me.
It's fine with me, Director Jex.
Okay.
Director Donner,
Director
that works for me as well.
Director Bates here. I will do my best.
Okay. Do we have, council, do we have to take a vote to change the time?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay, okay, good. So there were a couple of items that we pulled from this agenda just because they're a little bit more involved. And in April, we're starting to get into budget also. So, you know, we have items, I believe there's some budget discussion starting in April without having it in front of me. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. The annual timeline calls for a budget workshop in April. We anticipate having the updates back from GovInvest on April 1st regarding the long-range financial forecast. Once we receive those updates, there'll be at least a short delay to be able to process those and plug them into the long-range financial forecast and then make them available to the board. The question at that point will be, once that information is received, whether or not the Finance Committee would like to meet in advance of the workshop, the budget workshop. That obviously would be a public and noticed meeting. We also could hold a special meeting if there was a desire to review the long-range financial forecast in advance of the budget workshop. April will be the budget workshop, and then May and June will be the two budget meetings.
Okay. So the GovInvest, that impacts the long-range financial plan that we pulled off this agenda, correct?
That's correct, sir. It makes the actuarial recommended contributions to both the Pension Stabilization Trust Fund
Okay.
and the OPEB funds.
Okay. So, I mean, you'll keep us abreast of that, and, we'll just have to see what happens with, how we're going to have the meeting and what items are going to be on there.
I thought we talked, this is Director Jex, I thought last time we indicated that some of these may get pushed forward so that they're hopefully we're still not going to be having the same kind of restrictions in terms of being able to have people live in a meeting, where the public can participate more actively than they can on what we're talking about now, or the way they were doing now.
Right. I guess we'll just have to review that to see if we can make it any more user-friendly. I don't know that there is. I mean, I think we're meeting all the legal guidelines.
Well, I have a thought about that. And again, I don't know,
Yeah.
I'm not familiar, especially with Zoom, but just this is Director Jorgens, just a thought, maybe we could allow people to, raise their hand by texting somebody, that just has a phone they can just look at and say, hey, and then have Glorianne or whoever unmute that person for, however long they need, for less than 3 minutes, obviously, because each person can only get 3 minutes. So they could actually, you can selectively say, okay, caller number, they could just tell you which number they're calling in to the number on. You could unmute them for a minute and then remute them when they got through talking.
Yes, sir. I believe we can do that.
Okay, well, I'll work with the staff to try to figure out how we can address that and how we can notice that in our agendas.
Director Bates here. I just want to make sure that the other item that we pulled from this meeting about the staffing will be on the next meeting's agenda.
Okay, thank you, Director Bates. Yes. Got it. At this
I guess
point,
I would like to add then, if we're going to have that, I guess I'd like to potentially add having a discussion about spending, as the person requested today, spending money on fuel reduction also.
Okay. Chief, I know that the report on staffing is, it's going to change a little bit from what we previously discussed, but with an update. And what Director Jorgens said about spending money on was a fuel mitigation measures.
Right. Well, actual fuel reduction, but yeah, okay. Yep.
Fuel reduction. So, maybe it's so I guess we're going to need, some kind of staff report on if we were to increase, what would we do? What would it look like? What other measures could we take?
Yes, sir. Understand.
Okay. And we can talk about that more offline as well.
And I would like not to, waste too much staff time on other topics right at this point. We've had an agenda item that was pushed back before we start adding more and more items for this chief to work on and staff to work on, excuse me. Can we get the report that we asked for this meeting before we start adding more reports for the staff to work on?
Well, the only good news, put on any agenda item they want to, but yes.
So let me, I'm sorry, this is John Holtzman. I'm just trying to clarify exactly what item or items we're talking about for the coming agenda. What I understood to be on the agenda that got pushed back was really the discussion of the long-range plan. And then that's affected by potential changes in staffing, and could also be affected by well, any other change in expenditure or whatever. So I'm wondering, is this one item or two items?
I think we're talking
Well,
about.
there were two items. There were two items that were scratched off of this meeting's agenda: staffing and the long-range forecast. We scratched those off because we understand that staff has been really busy dealing with other fires going on out there. I don't want to see us spinning our wheels elsewhere until we get the two agenda items taken care of that we are pushing back: long-range forecast, and what is the staffing going to look like when it's put at 19? What are our numbers going to look like?
Well, but I guess my point for the agenda was to say that, you know, if we're trying to look at our financial forecast and think about what the trade-offs are, we should be thinking about all the trade-offs.
And I think we will.
This is Director Jex. You know, I think one of the issues in any of the long-range forecasts that we're going to do are going to be dramatically impacted by some major changes in what historically have been our long-range forecasts. In terms of tax revenues, what's going to happen with regards to other kinds of issues. And until you have the scenarios, multiple scenarios with regards to what could happen in the long-range forecast, I think to spend a lot of time on how we're going to allocate it, or whatever we're going to do in terms of budgeting decisions, you can do it, you can discuss it, but I don't think you're going to be able to take informed action to either approve or disapprove of anything until we have a better sense, which may not be until sometime towards the middle of the year, maybe in June, maybe in July. But I think you're going to have some major things you're going to have to discuss and work through before you can begin to start allocating anything, particularly if it's something new or whatever. And then I think, again, the issue in regards to the community with their desires obviously have been indicated that their priorities are somewhere else. So, and how much we can do that. The other one is if we have any kind of a fuel break kind of a major project, that's going to impact, again, in the long-range plan, the financing of that project like we had this year. In order to do it, fortunately, adequate resources, but we still had to borrow money to fund it before we got reimbursed by the state. So I don't think you're going to be able to rush any of those until sometime, even in terms of the operating budget, we may not make the indicated historical time frame of approving that before the end of the year. We may be into next year before we actually come up with a final operating budget.
Yeah, this is Director Danziger. Yes, I would agree with you, but I mean, we're going to start our budget discussions, and I think all those matters, be it fuel mitigation measures, staffing, and the long-range financial plan, all a part of that. So, yeah, I think we can at this point tend to get those on the agenda and address them as we need to. I mean, I don't want to not put them on the agenda. So, but you know, we'll see how things start shaking out as far as budget matters go. You're right. I mean, we're kind of in uncharted territory right now, as this report that was part of our agenda here from Corin and Cohn, the impact of this COVID-19 on property taxes is really unknown, and so.
Well, it's unknown, except we know it's not going to be good. It's going to be bad. We just don't know how bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and the other issue with regards, I mean, the huge issue is going to be the impact in terms of the market and its impact in terms of the unfunded pension liability. I mean, that could skyrocket up over $100 million. We'll be back where we were before.
Okay.
And we're not going to know that until probably, a few months hence in terms when we get the numbers and what it is as of, June 30th what we're going to be looking at that in terms of that obligation.
Yeah, remember, our pension costs more than doubled last time this kind of thing happened. And they basically haven't gone down since then.
Okay, well, I think all your comments are good comments, and we'll take it into consideration for the next meeting. What I'd like to do too is we discussed a lot under item 6, and we haven't had the opportunity for any member of the public to comment on any of these items. So what I'd like to do at this point is offer any member of the public who would like to address anything that we discussed under item 6, the opportunity now to comment. So we'll have a 3-minute period. You can comment either via the Facebook Live, or you can send an email to info@mofd.org. So we'll set the timer and we'll see if there's any comments that come on those items. While we're waiting for that, I had a question for the chief, and it had to do with the proposed fire code changes. My question would be, there seems to be a couple of parts of it that seem to be holding up the process, particularly from Orinda and I believe some from Moraga as well. Is there the possibility that we could go ahead and revise those, controversial, I'm going to use that word, controversial, or areas that are, contention, remove them for now, or revise those and move this forward so we can make the deadline at the end of May?
Well, I mean, yes, there is, but figuring out which things are those and what the revision is that would satisfy all parties. The devil's in the details there, and that's
Okay.
what we're currently working through with staff to make sure we fully understand what the concerns are. The ones that are concerns that can be answered are answered, and the ones that answering them doesn't address the concern, then that'll be the area where we start looking for alternate solutions where we achieve the goal of increasing resiliency and fire safety, while also achieving the goal of getting something passed.
Okay. And just for information too, is this can these changes only be made every 3 years?
No, sir. I mean,
No?
they can be any time that the 4 parties that have to agree to this, MOFD, the city, the town, and the county, want to reopen it. That certainly is something. There's no statutory limitation on doing it. However, it's a tremendous. It requires a tremendous investment of staff resources at all levels, and the logical time to make those proposed changes are when the building code updates are occurring, which happens, and the fire code updates at the state level, which happens every 3 years. So while there's nothing to say that it has to be done now or can only be done in 3 years, as a matter of available staff resources, every 3 years has been the standard. That said, in the absence of agreement to move forward with the proposed changes, the old fire code remains in force. It doesn't expire. So we continue to have a fire code, but we don't have the updated fire code.
And what is the I'm not clear on the May 31st deadline. What is that?
The proposed fire code suggests moving the annual exterior hazard abatement deadline from 15 June to 31 May. The rest proposed because we've had 3 fires now in the last several years that were caused in July by people doing fuels mitigation work. And the timeline on those were, if June 15th is a deadline, we can't cite a parcel for being non-compliant for annual and recurring grass and weeds if prior to June 15th. So if they're cited on the 16th and they've got about 2 weeks to do the work, that means we're not getting back out to identify that they didn't do the work until the beginning of July, which means now that you're getting into mid-July or later when initial fuels mitigation work is being done. At that time, the annual grasses and weeds are very cured. They're very dry. We're into fire season, and we have the climatic conditions that support rapid fire spread. The fire we had on Buckingham 2 years ago that bumped the 5 homes at the end of Painted Rock there, that was caused by fuel mitigation work that had been directed by a district issued citation. So the proposal to move it to the left by 2 weeks that align with Contra Costa County and with San Ramon Valley. And the intent is to give us a little more time earlier in the fuels mitigation season so that directed work as a result of a citation isn't occurring during the height of fire season.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
The 3-minute timer has ended.
Okay, I don't see any comments on Facebook Live.
No comments received on Zoom chat or to the info email address.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we adjourn, I just want to tell everyone I thought this worked very well, and I want everyone to be safe out there. Can we have a motion for adjournment?
I motion we adjourn. Director Bates.
Can we get a second?
I second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to adjourn. We take a roll call vote.
Director Bates,
Aye.
Director Donner,
Aye.
Director Jex,
Aye.
Director Jorgens,
Aye.
President Danziger.
Aye. Well, thank you, everybody. The meeting is adjourned. We'll see you next time.